This is Renaissance Horizon, and from the heart of Central Europe, I've got Peter on the line.
Okay, hello everyone. Hello Kyle, and
Hello.
warm welcome to everyone in your audience.
And so the election in Slovakia, that's February 29th, right?
Precisely.
Must be a leap year.
Yes.
So the first thing I want to talk about is SME, the Social Democrats. So they've basically been the biggest party since 2006. They're losing ground now. But the thing I've noticed from some of their members before is they'll say like really conservative things about social issues, even though they're socialists. They'll make comments about immigration or gay marriage or abortion that would be considered very extreme far right by, say, the Social Democrats of Sweden. So would you say that this is actually a socially conservative party, or is it just certain members of the party?
Yeah, I have to confirm they used to be the absolute dominator of the political sphere in Slovakia. But thanks to recent events, which I will elaborate on later, they are declining rapidly. And now they are leading just by a very slim margin. Well, I would say that that's a classic misunderstanding of the political concepts or terms like liberalism or conservatism.
Yeah.
They are tricky to work with since they can mean virtually anything depending who you ask and where. So it's like liberalism is vastly different term in Europe in comparison to America, and social democracy is no different. Therefore, just like Democratic Party in America, European social democracy is a very big tent. I would summarize it best for American viewer in this way. The social democratic parties have sort of, at least in this part of the world, have sort of frozen in development, and they are what your Democrats used to be like 30, 40 years ago.
Okay.
Something like Sanders before he kissed the globalist ring.
Okay.
And, it's time to ensure people affordable healthcare and get rid of all these millionaires and billionaires. So, jokes aside, social democracy or labor parties in Western Europe basically abandoned the traditional working class for minorities, and now their original voters is the deplorable, to borrow Hillary's term. In Eastern Europe, this shift has not yet come to pass, largely. Yeah, there are still some progressives, outliers. I would refer to my article for Amren. The original Soviet communism was quite conservative. All of the clown world alphabet people would end up in gulags. The communists here viewed working class people as the salt of the air, wholesome class, in opposition to the debauched and immoral style of the elite. And this sentiment still remains here in a very deep, subtle way, I would say. So, yes, you could call Smer socially conservative. I think people would just call it normal or common sense type of thinking. Yeah, of course, on the contrary, there are some people who are very progressivistic inside these social democratic parties who get degrees from Soros University and so on.
Well, as we were discussing the other day, back in the 80s and 90s, Bernie Sanders took a more hardline view on immigration than Donald Trump does today. But
yeah, precisely.
He calls Donald Trump an extreme far right on immigration.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing that the right, the Republicans, and the right-wing parties here in Europe, they used to be for immigration. That would because it brings cheap labor and boosts their profits. So,
right.
It's really funny how the fight or political struggle has moved from economical war to culture war.
Yeah. So Slovakia recently elected Zuzana. I'll let you say her last name.
Čaputová.
Okay, she's the new president now. She ran as a progressive, and so some people were saying this marked a big shift to the left in Slovakia. Of course, as far as I know, Slovakia is a country where the president doesn't have very much power anyway, and probably voter turnout was low. And then in the EU election, the people that backed Susanna, it looks like they only got about 20%. So was that really a shift to the left? Does it really mean anything for Slovakia that they elected this woman?
I don't really think so, because at least since we have the direct election of presidents in our countries, the election of presidential elections are basically a giant spectacle of tweeting and chattering classes, hysteria, and with very little impact on the actual direction of the country. Yeah. So Čaputová, well, yeah, she is quite an NPC type of person with very little personality of her own. I get the impression from her. She's constantly regurgitating liberal slogans, whether on climate change and this kind of stuff. Funny thing is that she doesn't even run her Twitter account in Slovak, but in English. That really makes you think. She even
What, you're saying she tweets in English instead of...
Yes, precisely.
How progressive.
Yes. I think she really is deep in this mindset of united mankind, globalism.
Yeah.
She even worked for Soros' Open Society Foundation some time ago. So it's quite self-explanatory, I think. Nevertheless, I don't think Slovakia is moving to the left. I believe she was just at the right place in the right time. Like 2 years ago, exactly 2 years ago, young Slovak journalist and his fiancée were murdered by a gunman hired by Slovak mob leader Marian Kočner. He's like a prince of darkness of Slovakian society. This event led to downfall of previous Robert Fico government and general desire for new personalities among the electorate. So I think she fits this requirement because nobody knew who she was 2 months before the election. And also presidential figure in countries like Slovakia is perceived as basically like nothing more than nice display person for representative purpose. I think which she fits too because she's quite beautiful.
Yeah. Now, a lot of countries in Europe seem to be going this way, and Slovakia is definitely one of them, where it's getting to the point where there's no longer any big parties. It's just a huge number of small parties. So
that's correct.
And there's a bunch of parties that are more or less on the right, you know, all different places on the right side of the spectrum. But I was hoping you could just briefly tell us what some of these parties are. There's Ordinary People, Kotleba, We Are Family, SAS, Slovak National Party, Christian Democratic Movement.
Basically, they are all very interchangeable, and it basically depends on who hates who and who just stormed out of one party and started some other project and so on. This question kind of connects to the previous one. So I will give you the basic rundown of parties in Slovakia as I understand them right now. The Smer, the Social Democracy, right now is perceived as a party of corruption and organized crime and mob rule, which probably is in a certain way. But I don't really know how to characterize the rest of the parties very well. So ordinary people are basically centrists, trying to present themselves as free of corruption organization and free of political clientelism. Then you have, of course, Ľudová strana naše Slovensko Kotleba. That's basically a national socialist party. Yes, if you took National Front in France from the time of Jean-Marie Le Pen, and had some even more overblown rhetoric.
Yeah.
And they openly wear World War II Slovak fascist state uniforms. So you can describe them as leaning towards the fascist legacy. I don't throw around these terms very lightly, but I don't have any other term how to use it. And then you have Slovak National Party. It's basically national party, mainly focused against Hungarians. And VR family is kind of hard to describe. That's basically a populist movement, traditionalist conservative movement, mainly against the alphabet rainbow people propaganda. And then you have Sloboda and Solidarita, freedom and solidarity, which is center-right libertarian party, a bit like Ron Paul, I think. Then there is Síť, which means the net, which is centrist liberal conservatives. I don't know anything special about them.
Well, we were talking about Most-Híd the other day, and there's because one of the things that I've always thought was cool about Hungary is the government always acts as an advocate for the Hungarian minorities in all the surrounding countries. And like in Romania, you have a big Magyar minority party that's closely allied with Fidesz, but you told me Most-Híd is actually what, pretty much anti-Fidesz?
You can call them this way. I would start this way. Hungarian government is trying for a long time to emancipate Hungarian minorities in neighboring countries and sort of weaponize them. They are granting double citizenships to them, example given, and so on. Then Most-Híd, which means the bridge in both Slovak and Hungarian. That's a bilingual Slovak-Hungarian party who declares to fight for minority rights, which also includes gypsies and other minorities.
Okay.
They are approaching it from a different angle than Fidesz. Most-Híd is a very pro-EU multiculturalist party who even participates in Slovak government right now, together with Slovak National Party, the archenemy of Hungarians. Generally, the goal of Most-Híd is to make Hungarian minority in Slovakia loyal Slovak citizens and combat nationalism with all this liberal, democratic, pro-EU rhetoric. On the other hand, Fidesz, they want to emancipate them and enhance the Hungarian national spirit. So they both fight for Hungarians, but they inevitably clash with one another.
The Slovak National Party, do they actually bill themselves as like a pan-Slavic party? Because I think I've heard that about them before.
Yeah, there are some sentiments of Pan-Slavism, but it's quite subtle.
Okay.
And basically, Pan-Slavism is it's a long dead and buried ideology. So
so that's more like 1848.
Yes, yeah. So
okay.
I would describe it in the same way that some people, in the same way as Kotleba, some people just have deep nostalgic longing for the glorious past, and um, they are very idealistic, and that's the sentiment which it springs from.
Okay. So I wanted to talk about Kotleba. I followed the trial in 2019 where they tried to ban him, and the court refused. I think it was like the High Court of Slovakia, whatever it's called.
Yeah,
and
I
the
think
court.
the Constitutional Court, I believe.
Okay.
But,
Yeah.
I'm not very sure right now.
Well, immediately after they refused to ban him, they exploded in popularity in the polls, and they won 2 of Slovakia's seats in the EU. So now they're kind of like the same thing that when Golden Dawn had seats in the EU Parliament. They're like a hot potato that nobody wants to touch because they're considered so controversial. But I'm wondering, are they capitalizing from being painted as these renegade bad boys? I mean, are people just attracted to that?
Yeah, I could definitely agree. It's one part of their popularity, because I think that some time ago, when Kotleba even became the Župan, which is like governor in America of one region in Slovakia, basically the general sentiment of the electorate was that, yeah, he's a dick, but we want to get rid of Fico and Smer clientelism and corruption. So just Kotleba was just a way to stick it to them. And I think many people were afraid to endorse them when this party was under threat of being declared as illegal. Now that they are vindicated, it's not such a taboo to endorse them.
Okay.
Yeah, they are too hot goods, hot potato to handle for any decent politician.
Yeah. Now, the other thing I wonder about Kotleba, because it's got this big long official name, but people just call it the name of the leader, Marian Kotleba.
Yes.
So is it in some ways a personality cult just around the leader, or is it?
I certainly understand why you might think so, but I don't think it's a personality cult. I think it's I view them as a materialization of certain people's idealistic image of Slovak proud and strong past they want to return to. It's just to give you another comparison. People who voted for Trump, they love Trump, but they don't necessarily worship him as a personality cult. They worship this idealized picture of America in the past, which they want to make great again.
Yeah.
And Trump is just the embodiment of it.
Yeah.
If Trump renounced them tomorrow, they would still think this in this way. So Kotleba is basically the same thing.
Okay. So yeah, people will call themselves a Trump Republican, but they don't necessarily hero worship the guy. So some people do hero worship Trump. There are people who do.
Well, yeah, of course. I think that Kotleba is he is the progenitor of this nostalgic sentiment, longing for the past, where things were simple. Slovaks were stronger and prouder. It's like, I don't know, people who love the Confederacy legacy in America.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of leftists view that as pure evil, but they view it as heritage, and they want to return to.
All right. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about Slovakia?
Well, depending which you are interested to, I like Slovaks. They are very hot-blooded and kind of passionate. I like to visit it. The nature there is very, very beautiful. They have tall mountains. The language is almost identical, so there is no problem with communication. And that's pretty much it. I recommend everyone to go there. It's very affordable and authentic.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for this report. And I'm looking forward to the results of the Slovakian election on February 29th. So thanks for being with me today.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. And I hope your audience will find it entertaining, informative.
All right. Well, thanks a lot.
Yeah. Welcome. Keep up doing the good work.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.